Hey, hope y'all been having a good day. Hope everything been working out in y'all favor. I decided finally to do a video. And lately I've been discombobulated in the mind on what to do. Excuse all the noise. But what to do because I want to do something. I just didn't know what to do. I want to do something that not only could help me, but help other people. So I decided to do a different type of video or videos. You know, trying to do the cliche commercial like videos is tiring, it's draining. Cause it's a lot, right? When I could just, you know, either hook up my camera or put up my cell phone and talk. Give y'all an organic, real sense of who I am. Yeah, of course, we're going to talk about a lot of things. You know, I'm going to talk about the good and the bad and why my childhood made me who I am today. Not only my childhood, my teenage years, my 20s or early 20s, late 20s, early 30s, late 30s. And if a lot of you don't know who I am, my name is John Harris. John Henry Harris to be exact. I'm 39 years old. I was born in Mississippi, the state of Mississippi, from a small area. It's, Shelby, Mississippi is where I was born. It's populated roughly 1,500 to 2,000. I may be wrong, but you can Google it. Um, was a baby there and grew up with my mother and father. Had the typical good childhood up until a certain age, but we'll talk about that when that come up. My mother and father, typical family, you know, come from the typical family. And the area we in, to be honest with you, is rural. So they come from, you know, humble upbringings and in the traditional way of living. What I mean traditional is, their mothers were brought up and raised up on farms, you know, and their mothers probably were sharecroppers and, they were the people who worked the land, who chopped the cotton and probably picked the cotton. So my grandmother's mothers and fathers are the ones who, back in the early 1900s, 1920s, teens, on back to the late 1800s, and on forth, we don't come from a lot of money. Nobody in my family changed the landscape of my family financially. So I don't come from a lot of wealth. I come from a little country, podunk, area, but rich with people. It may have been poor financially, and the only people that benefited from it were, of course, people who own the land. But as a people, where I come from, we're very rich, very rich. So you know, it was a lot of good times that I remember as a baby going on up to a young man. So I got plenty of stories. I sit back and talk to my wife, and she'd say, "Man, you should write a book." you know, because that's who I've been to. That's my best friend. I don't have a lot of friends. I have an inner circle, and it's this small, right? And that's who I've been to, my wife. That's who I trust with all my information, other than my mother, my brother. I do have siblings, but that's later on down the line when we get there. But for the most part, if you think of the Sandlot, the movie The Sandlot, that's pretty much how my childhood was as a little kid. Played a lot of sports. I was outside a lot. Didn't watch a lot of TV up until a certain point. Had a great childhood. But there also was the times where, we, also were the times where, we as kids, I know I personally went through some traumatic experiences. Because to be honest with you, there were things my grandmother and my own up to my parents that they wasn't taught, right? Because they wasn't financially, you know what I mean, up there with the elite, right? So they wasn't ahead of the game. They were just pawns in the game. That's my take on it. So with that being said, and I'm gonna drive a little bit, talk. But with that being said, a lot of my family, like I said, come from nothing, and we supposedly have a little land or whatever, but it ain't enough to change the landscape of the family. You feel what I'm saying? It's just enough to go hunting on. And we have a little burial site out there where the family bury, we bury our people. For the most part, I can't say we're rich in people. If you come to my area where we're from, we're going to feed you good. You're going to always have somewhere to stay. It's a nice area to the point where, it's peaceful. Ain't a lot of traffic because it's country. It's rural. Small town. It ain't like one of these big cities, I stay in Jacksonville, Florida now. And Jacksonville is huge. You probably could fit a couple of where I'm from, my little towns in this small place that we know now is Jacksonville. So, yeah, Jacksonville is huge. But where I'm from is just a speck in the drop of water in the ocean, as you would say. So, we had to learn how to be, a family. Because where I'm from, you had to, my grandmother and, I'm sorry, but seatbelt. For my grandmother and the next door neighbor, they would sit out on the porch. I don't know if y'all had that kind of, upbringing, but my grandmother and my grandfather and the next door neighbors on both sides. And man, it just ain't them all the way down the street, and especially us being a small town, that little area, if you got in trouble, everybody gonna know, right? So if you did something crazy, like if you broke a window, just for example, you probably were gonna get in trouble a few times. Like you gonna get your butt whooped a few times. The people who wanted you broke gonna get on your butt, and then on top of that, and wasn't nothing gonna be said about it. On top of that, my grandma and granddad were gonna get on my butt. So it was a different upbringing I have, or I remember than with these new kids. It was a whole different type of vibe back then. We had a village back then, and I think that's what made me who I am. But also, there are a lot of things that held me back that I didn't know because they didn't know, because their parents didn't know, because their parents didn't know. So, it's a generational, I don't want to say curse, but I mean, you can say curse, but it's just not knowing, not understanding money, not understanding the world, but only understanding the environment that we lived in. And for a huge amount of years, it affected me. Thank God I had a brain that didn't like to be. I've never liked to be, put in the box. You know what I mean? I was always different. I was the type of kid, from what I remember, that used to sit back and observe, right? And I never wanted to be like everybody else, because you did have the bullies, you had the popular kids that they mama or financially, financially smart, and then you had the other kids that got picked on, and then you had the poor kids, and then you had the special kids, special need kids, But I was always the one that was like neutral. I could fit into any type of crowd, right? So I didn't have too much trouble when I was a kid out of, too many people. Like I didn't have to fight, as much as other kids did. You know what I mean? And some people would say, oh, look at that as a, but I'm grateful for that, because that lets me know that, maybe I was doing something right, because I didn't have too many quarrels with people. I didn't have too many enemies back then as a kid. Everybody, I could hang with everybody. So, thank God I had the mindset to change a lot that a lot of people didn't have the mindset to change. I moved out of Mississippi, and even when I was in Mississippi, I was making clearly over $100,000 a year. So for Mississippi, that's a nice amount of money. We're bringing in close to $10,000 a month living in Mississippi. So, I can't complain. And that's not to say I didn't get in trouble. Like I said, there's certain things I didn't understand, certain things I did learn, but that's on down the line. That's on down the line. We'll talk about that in another video. So my point in this video is just giving you a little insight on, the area where I'm from, who I am. And there's definitely going to be a part 2, maybe a part 3. But, just stay tuned, and there's going to be more. So, yeah.